Hi guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel. These are all the books that I want to read in February and there are quite a few, so I'm just going to jump straight into it. So I want to talk about my pick for the Buzzwordathon, which is being hosted by Kayla over at Books and Lala. I will link her video in the description box down below for you guys if you want to check it out. But for February, the buzzword is a colour, so you literally just pick a book with a colour in the title essentially. So for that I have gone with Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown. So I've heard such incredible things about this book. I've seen a few people reading it quite recently and just having nothing bad to say about it, and I have had this on my Kindle shelf for months, and I've just haven't got around to it. But this is all about Echo Brown, who is a young girl living in the East Side, and she is a wizard, and magic in this world that she lives in is literally everywhere, and portals start opening up and she goes through one of these portals and she ends up living on the west side of where she lives, and she transfers to this rich magic school. And I don't really know too much more about it other than that, and it is an autobiographical account of the author's life and her experiences, and it has lots of magical realism in it, which is a genre that I really want to get into this year. I haven't read a lot of magical realism, so that just really appeals to me right now. And it talks about topics like gender and mental health and sexual violence, and race identity. So even though the story sounds quite light-hearted, I feel like it is going to be a very heavy read. But either way, I'm super excited for it. It has amazing ratings, so I know for sure that this book isn't going to let me down. Now we're going to move on to my non-fiction picks for February. As you guys probably know, I want to read 2 non-fiction books every month this year. And one of the first ones that I have gone for is 100 Great Black Britons, a celebration of the extraordinary contribution of key figures of African or Caribbean descent to British life. And this is by Patrick Vernon, Angelina Osborne, and there are also a few other black contributors to this book as well. This one has only just come out in the last few months, and again it's a book that I've been wanting to get to for quite some time. I feel like this book is going to teach me a lot about a lot of people who I probably have never heard of. I know it does mention quite a few well-known names as well. Mary Seacole, who I did learn about very briefly in school. Idris Elba, who is a very famous British actor, black British actor. If you don't know who he is, honestly, where have you been? Because he is incredible. They also talk about Diane Abbott, who is a British MP, and God bless her, she's had a lot of flack recently for some things that honestly has not really been that much of a big deal, but she was the first black woman to ever be elected into Parliament in the 80s, so she holds that mantle. And then they also talk about people like Benjamin Zephaniah, who is a British writer, and I've seen him on telly a few times. Stormzy, who I don't really like his music, but yeah, he has contributed quite a lot to British music and British culture. So it talks about, yeah, all these people from all different walks of life, who are black and who have contributed something to British society, to the culture, just to British life in general, as the title says. So I'm very excited for this one, and I'm just looking forward to finding out more about these people and finding out about people that history has probably kind of pushed to the side, because history is very whitewashed and we need to change that drastically. My next non-fiction pick is British on Race, Identity and Belonging by Afua Hirsch. So I have this on audiobook. This was kind of an impulse purchase. I hadn't really heard of Afua Hirsch. I hadn't really heard of this book, but it sounded really interesting. It just talks about how people perceive people of colour and how they kind of assume that people of colour, black people in this country, are immigrants. Afua Hirsch is British. Her parents are British. They were born in this country. She was born in this country, but because of her skin colour, people assume that she is an immigrant. And so she's just talking about how that kind of affects her day-to-day life and how it affects other people's day-to-day lives, and just kind of teaching you how to dismantle your perceptions of people a little bit. So I feel like this book is gonna open up a lot of people's eyes to the way they judge people with different skin colours, because there is a problem in this country with xenophobia and racism, in the sense that we automatically assume that anyone who isn't white is an immigrant who is coming over here and stealing our jobs. And obviously that is not the case. Black people have been living and have been born in this country for hundreds of years. Not just black people, but people from Eastern Europe, from Asia. We have a very diverse culture here, but yeah, like, I don't know, but I'm very interested to read this book, and I'm very interested to see what Hirsch has to say about her experiences. So I'm looking forward to that one. Then we're going to move on to my Around the World pick for February, and I wanted to try and read 2 books this month, but I'm not really sure what my second one is going to be yet, so you'll have to wait and see for that. But I know that I definitely want to read Half a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I've heard amazing things about this author. I've seen quite a few interviews by her actually, and she just sounds like a really intelligent, really empathetic, really incredible woman, and I'm shocked that I haven't read any of her work yet. But this book is all about Biafra's impassioned struggle to establish an independent republic in Nigeria in the 1960s and the chilling violence that followed. So this is a topic that I've only just recently heard of because I read War Girls by Tony Onyebuchi last August, and that is an Afrofuturism novel. It's a sci-fi novel about these 2 girls, these 2 sisters who live in Nigeria, and it's inspired by the Nigerian and Biafran civil war. And I didn't know that that was a thing. Again, it's not something I ever learned about. So I'm very excited to read this because it is going to educate me a bit more on that subject, which is what I said I was going to do last year. I was going to read some more on that subject. This just follows a 13-year-old Ugwu who is employed as a houseboy for a university professor full of revolutionary zeal. And then there is Alana, who is the professor's beautiful mistress, who has abandoned her life of privilege in Lagos for a dusty university town and the charisma of her new lover. And there is Richard, a young, shy Englishman in thrall of Alana's twin sister. And as the Nigerian troops advance and the 3 must run for their lives, their ideals are severely tested, as are their loyalties to one another. So yeah, this book just sounds really interesting, and again, it's got amazing reviews. I've heard a lot about this book, so I'm very excited to get to that one. Next we have a thriller that was on one of my most anticipated reads videos of last year. And I'm finally pleased to say I'm getting around to it, and that is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. And this is a very intense thriller from what I've heard. I've heard that people have found it quite tense and quite scary, which is what I want. It just sounds like it's going to blow my mind. And this kind of talks about the topic of gentrification, how that gentrification kind of pushes certain people out of societies and out of this neighbourhood in which this book is set in. And it's all about this woman who moves back to a neighbourhood where she lived when she was a child. She grew up there, she knows it really well, and she kind of sees how it's changed over time, and she makes friends with this guy who's lives there as well, and they kind of create a tour of the neighborhood, and they realize, you know, that a lot of people are starting to leave, but are they actually leaving the neighborhood? Are they leaving the neighborhood to live somewhere else, or is something a bit more sinister happening? And it taps into kind of like the paranoia and the fear of being watched and being followed, and it just, it sounds really creepy. I am here for it. Then we've got another book that I've talked about quite a lot on this channel, so I'll try and keep it short and sweet, but that is Leave the World Behind by Marana Lamb. So this is a sci-fi, thriller, horror. It's kind of an amalgamation of all sorts of genres that I really, really enjoy. And this is set to the backdrop of a communications blackout in New York, where there is like no news, no internet, no phones or anything. There's literally like no form of communication with anyone, and there are these two couples. One of these couples, they're a white couple, I believe, and they are having a bit of a weekend break. They're staying in this lovely house outside of New York City. They don't really know what's going on, and then another couple, who is a black couple, knock on their door and inform them of what's happening in New York City. And these two couples are kind of forced to live together, and things get really tense, and I don't really know what happens. Is there going to be a murder? I hope there's a murder. But this one just talks about the differences between different classes and different races, and it just sounds really fucking insane. And again, I've heard so many amazing things about this. I've heard so many amazing things about all the books on this TBR, so that's all I'm gonna say. Another book that I want to read this month, which is another book that I've only just heard of, and it was actually recommended to me by this book recommending service, which is called Narrative Muse, and I'm not sponsored by them at all. They don't know I exist. It's just a website that I found and have found it really useful. Actually, you can go on there and you can put in all your different kind of preferences, genres that you like, things you want in books, like, I don't know, like strong women, good writing. You can even put in things like, you know, I want books about black women, people of colour, LGBTQ+, disability, or you can just put all sorts of things in there, and then they will recommend books to you that contain all the things you want to read about. And they recommended this book to me, Heads of the Coloured People by Nafissa Thompson. So I don't really know too much about this book. I think I've only seen one person mention it online in the past week or so. But this is a collection of moving, timely and darkly funny stories that examine the concept of black identity in this so-called post-racial era. So it's all about black identity and contemporary middle class, and it's just a collection of short stories that kind of explore those things and how they affect black people. Some of these stories are darkly humorous, from two mothers exchanging snide remarks through notes in their kids' backpacks to the young girl contemplating how best to notify her Facebook friends of her impending suicide, while others are devastatingly poignant, a new mother and funeral singer who is driven to madness with grief for the young black boys who have fallen victim to gun violence, or the teen who struggles between her upper middle class upbringing and her desire to fully connect with black culture. So they're short stories, they're works of fiction, but they're inspired by very real events. And so I feel like this book is going to be an education. So I'm interested to see what I'm going to learn from it and what it's all about. So those are the books by black authors that I want to read this month, and those are the books that I want to prioritise above others. But I do have a couple of romance books that I want to read as well. We've got the On Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This one sounds like a lot of fun, and I've heard so many amazing things about this book. I've heard great things about Christina Lauren in general. I just haven't got around to reading their books because I'm not a huge romance reader, and it's something that I have to be in the mood for. But because it's February, you know, I do want to read a little bit of something romantic. So this woman called Olive has a twin sister called Amy, and Amy is getting married to this guy called Ethan. Olive and Ethan hate each other, but Olive, you know, is prepared to put up with 24 hours of misery just to be there for her sister's wedding. So the wedding happens, but then the entire wedding party get food poisoning, and the only two people that aren't affected are Olive and Ethan, coincidentally. And so in order to, you know, not lose any money on the honeymoon, which is happening in Hawaii, Olive agrees to go on the honeymoon with Ethan in Amy's place because they're identical twin sisters. It sounds a bit weird, but it's an enemies to lovers thing, and I do like enemies to lovers when it's done well, and I've heard that this one is done really well, so I don't know, we'll see how I feel about this one, but it sounds quite fun and quite light-hearted, and I've read a lot of heavy books lately, so I do want to read something that is just going to be a bit mindless and a bit, you know, happy. So there's that one, and then we've got The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. I think this one is about two people who don't know each other who end up sharing a flat. So I think it's like this guy owns this flat and this girl needs somewhere to stay, so she ends up staying in his flat because he needs the money. It's kind of like the perfect situation. Everyone's happy, and it's a strangers to lovers kind of situation, which sounds really fun. Sorry, I'm really distracted by all the flares going on. Look at that. That looks really pretty, but it's not good for video. Hold on. Alright, so I've had to adjust angle a little bit. Not that it matters too much, but yes, so The Flat Share, I'm looking forward to that one. Again, it seems like a pretty mindless read, pretty light-hearted, something that I feel like I need right now because I have been a bit slumpy. I have read quite a few heavy books, and boy, am I feeling all of the emotions right now. And then finally, the last book that I want to read in February, which was the last minute edition only a few days ago, and I don't know how I'm going to achieve all of this, but I want to read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So I have been going through this bad boy a little bit through January because, as I mentioned, I did get into a little bit of a reading slump again. I read 4 books. Tried to read 1 book, hated it, DNF'd it, didn't feel like reading after that, but I ended up picking up my complete Sherlock Holmes collection because I was really feeling it, you know. I was like, I really want to read some Sherlock Holmes and it's just there, so why not? So yeah, I've been going through this a little bit and reading some of the stories, and I posted it on Instagram, and then a guy who I've been following on Instagram for years contacted me and said, you know, we are doing a Sherlock Holmes read-along in February, and we will be reading The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Do you want to get involved? And of course I said yes. So I have read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes before, but it's been about, I want to say about 7 or 8 years since I last read it. So it'd be nice to go back to that and refresh my memory a bit. But I don't own a Sherlock Holmes, like The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes book anymore. I used to, but I don't now. But I do have it in here, so I will be getting to that at some point in February as well. But luckily, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is just a collection of short stories, so I can just read 1 story a day. I can just go through it whenever I want. The read-along is happening throughout all of February, so I don't have to rush through it. I don't need to pressure myself. I don't need to pressure myself with any of these books, you know? It don't matter if I don't read all of them, but I want to read all of them. We'll see, but yeah, that is my February TBR. I tried to keep it short and sweet, but look what happened. We are over the 20-minute mark now, so there we go. Anyway, I am going to wrap this video up here. Please feel free to let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books I have talked about in this video, what you thought of them. I really appreciate the feedback. Also feel free to let me know what you're planning to read for February, and whether there are any books that you think I should be reading in the future. I always appreciate the recommendations. So yeah, please leave a cheeky thumbs up if you liked this video. Please subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos from me in the future, and I will see you all in another video very soon. Bye guys!